these trains are fun to watch, but I wish they could talk to each other.
Silly steamies.
What's that?
I'm trying not to spill. I could be a useful engine.
Oh my god!
Heaving hooks.
Hello everyone, Train King James here with another review. This time it's not a Thomas Wooden Railway review, but a Trackmaster review. Or should I say motorized review, as this is what the range is technically called now. So, I'm really excited to look at these. I was interested in these versions of these talking motorized engines, and really ultimately I'm really glad that I could get my hands on quite a few of them. As you see here, I have the Talking Thomas and Percy set, along with the James and Diesel to go along with this. So we'll be taking a look at the set first, and then breaking down the characters afterwards, and then giving my overall thoughts. So without further ado, let's begin. So the brand only goes back as far as 2021. It was a recently created brand by Mattel to introduce another version of the motorized characters in a talking format. Talking versions of the Thomas characters has existed in past iterations across all of the brands. However, this version was very fascinating. These characters could communicate with one another on any part of the layout or any part of the room, and these characters could continue on conversations and be utilized in such fascinating ways. They had special chips and sensors that could sense which character they were talking to, and could carry on preset conversations based on whatever they were doing, would do, or what the character was doing. And it's really interesting. So first things first, let's take a look at the set. I've taken out the pieces for this set already, and there's a lot of fun to look at. So much to see already. But we'll take a look first at the characters that are involved in the set. So you have Thomas and Percy with interesting design choices here. They have strong headlamps towards the top, something that usually Trackmaster engines just have a painted long lump for. Here you get something that actually works and is a fundamental part of the set's ability to work. Along with it, they have big red buttons on top of their cabs that allow them to talk to one another. Thomas and Percy are pretty nicely designed, and ultimately I think are a nice piece for the set. They also come with some interesting pieces of rolling stock, which we'll take a closer look at later. Also within this set you have a Bulstrode, a character that hasn't been in the show since Season 4, yet has been a fundamental staple of Thomas and Friends merchandise, especially within the last 10 years. You also have some nice destinations, including Vickerstown Bridge, Henry's Tunnel in Blue Mountain Quarry Mashton 1, and the docks. You also have some nice track pieces, some switches, and lots of other things. Without further ado, let's put this set together. Now that we have put the set together, I really want to show off something else. The set comes with this Trackmaster push-along / motorized pamphlet that shows off a lot of stuff within it, and it's really nicely designed. And that's something I can say a lot about this set, the design. The box is something that stuck out to me as well. There's so many cool aspects of the box. It's really colorful and has a lot of nice strong imagery for the brand, the time. Something that Mattel has struggled with in recent times is really creating an identity, but I feel like Mattel created one here. It really emphasizes the closeness of the characters, and it also shows off the beauty of the brand and the engines and its simplicity. Too bad it couldn't do that in its modern show. But we're not talking about that today. Let's get to the set. The set is essentially a more complicated version of a figure 8 set, which essentially has two lines, a blue line for Thomas and a green line for Percy. The trucks in the set are tied to specific jobs. Mail for Percy and stone for Thomas. The user can decide wherever to send them, but there's various things for the person to do. We'll start off with Thomas. He'll go to the Blue Mountain Quarry and pick up stone. Thomas runs around the layout, he'll talk with Percy, pick up stone through a special hopper mechanism inside the tunnel at Blue Mountain Quarry. Once he completes that job, Thomas will then return back to the platform where he started. Percy has an interesting job as well. He'll go to the docks and meet up with Bulstrode, and this part is really cool. So the way it works is when Percy arrives, you load up Bulstrode with cargo. Once Bulstrode is off the water platform here, Percy sets off again and crosses the Vickerstown Bridge. The bridge may be one of my favorite parts of the set. It's really nicely designed and really intricately detailed. It looks straight out of the CGI series itself, and although it doesn't raise or lift, the design alone is something that I think is better than what we've had in recent years from a lot of other merchandise lines.
Hi, Percy! Where are you headed? Next stop, Vickerstown Bridge.
So now that we've run Thomas and Percy on the set, it's time we bring on some other characters. Here's James. And James was a single 3-pack that you can buy in stores. I recommend looking in Target. It comes with James and a special design where he's in the middle of being cleaned, which is an interesting design choice, but I do kind of like it. He's being scrubbed and cleaned, and you can see people on him and bubbles and whatnot. But then also along James, you have a very interesting coach/van behind them, which you can flip-flop to either be pigs or coaches, which I think is an interesting design choice. I think if the door was a little bit different and something that was a little more consistent rather than jutting out, I think it'd look a lot more cleaner. Maybe something that was a massive flap that went through the entire sides or flipped. Anyway, it's time to run James on the set. James runs pretty fine, but he does have a tendency to struggle once he climbs the hill near the Vickerstown Bridge. Other than that, though, James clears the set fine and enjoys himself doing so.
Showing off my shiny red paintwork.
Now let's bring on Diesel. Diesel is a character that I picked up most recently from Target, and I'm not a big fan of his design. I don't really get the stripe theme that's on him, but I do think though ultimately he is the weakest designed character of the set. There's also an additional Gordon pack which I don't have, and another Thomas one that comes with Andy and Clarabelle. However, while Diesel may be weakly designed, his rolling stock's very interesting. He's pulling almost a slate truck that has a cow in it that has special pegs to hold the cow in place, and a troublesome tanker that rocks to and fro carrying milk. I like that the tanker's clear because when it rocks to and fro you can see the milk load shaking inside the tanker, and it looks rather interesting. So it's time to run Diesel on the layout.
Oh, hi, James. Hi, friend.
Diesel runs very smoothly around the layout, and unlike James, doesn't have any issues. Ultimately, I really enjoyed the set. I think the set really has some nice pieces, and I think the engines along this new line are really nicely designed. I think it's time I get out to the grades. I'll start off with breaking down the set with the pieces that strictly came within it, and then I'll take a look at James and Diesel. So the first grade I give is the characters, and I give it a strong 9. I like the way Thomas and Percy are designed. While they do have that Trackmaster 2 look to them, which I'm not the biggest fan of, they do use that look to their full advantage, and they add a really nice headlamp to them. And I think the character choices, especially with the design of the set being 2 characters that talk to each other, it's a good thing they decided to use the 2 best friends to talk to each other, instead of picking a random character pairing like Thomas and Gordon, or Henry and Toby. The buildings in the set are also really nicely designed. They get a 9 as well. I really love the Vickerstown Bridge, and the tunnel, the Blue Mountain Quarry design is also really cool. I do think some of the standalone buildings are a little weak, but because they're mainly just supposed to be signs, I do think it is very nicely designed as well. I think if the docks had a crane or cranky to go along to load Bulstrode, which I feel like the load suggested may have, I think that would be the perfect final piece for the set. The design of the set I also gave a 9. I think the set works very nicely for the characters, and they run around in a nice intricate layout. The characters are very smart and intelligently designed to the point where they can stop and start once one character stops, and start again once another character keeps moving. So accidents are few and far between. That doesn't mean they don't still happen. In terms of playability, I gave it an 8, strictly because characters may have trouble sometimes running on the hilly sections, but ultimately it is a fun set to use, and I do think the set works very well most of the time. There are sometimes, though, it can be hard to stop the characters once they get in motion, and I also do think that sometimes characters can get stuck and they still have tendencies to run into each other, even though they are smartly designed. The aesthetic I give a strong 9. And I really feel like the set's aesthetic is one of the strongest pieces here. It feels like a fun children's set, and they really give you the design. The box is creative and inviting with so much colorful imagery. The pamphlet makes you want to buy more. And the characters and the set design itself really add to this nice, light-hearted feeling of Sodor countryside. You have some of the most iconic Sodor destinations, and I think it really helps its strong grade. Ultimately, the set gets an 8.8 score out of 10, which is a very strong, highly graded score. Again, not perfect, but just short of it. For James, I gave a strong 8. I really think it is a little weird that they decided to paste workmen on James's side rather than just bubbles and suds, but ultimately I do like the way he looks. I also really like the carriage, although it could have used some minor alterations. Diesel in this set gets a 7.5 just because I'm not a really big fan of the racing stripe look that Diesel has. But ultimately, I really do like the pieces of rolling stock he comes with, maybe even a little bit more than James's. Ultimately, this is a fun set that a child could sit for hours and play with. This is something that I find myself, a 22-year-old, really interested and engrossed in. Ultimately, we've come to our end of this review. This is Train King James signing off with another Thomas & Friends review.